Greetings and welcome to Kiro Kids Online. This is Dr. Neil Davies speaking, and today's issue is related to the art, the science and the philosophy of the neuroimpulse protocol. In the discipline of philosophy, art of all kinds is generally considered to be a part of the ever-broadening area of aesthetics. The art of chiropractic is no different to any other art form in that its expression contains innate beauty. The art of NIP involves highly specific, strictly systematized methods of determining somatic dysfunction around an axis of three-dimensionality. The development of the ability to perform these techniques of somatic assessment is physically demanding, it's time-dependent, and it's intellectually robust, no different in many ways to the hours and hours of practice required by a violinist to master the instrument. And it is true that as with the violin, so in NIP, some will become players, some will become masters, and a few, unfortunately a very few, will end up as virtuosos. At whatever level it is practiced, the art of conducting an NIP assessment of a patient is a thing of aesthetic beauty. We move on now to speak of the science of NIP. The science of NIP is complex and involves two separate areas of consideration that largely synthesize together. The first area of consideration is the reliance of NIP on the research literature, more particularly from the science of neuroplasticity. In this area of scientific investigation has progressed, neuroplasticity has expanded, it has created opportunity for NIP to expand in parallel as the means of application of the evolving scientific principles, and this remains very much an ongoing process. The second discipline, very much a demanding intellectual process, is the science of hermeneutics, which is variably defined as that branch of knowledge that deals with interpretation. In every patient assessed by the skillful NIP practitioner, a literal plethora of findings will emerge. The practitioner is then confronted with the challenge of interpreting those findings in terms of their specific pattern of occurrence and making a decision based on that interpretation of what to physically do to the patient by way of treatment. This is clinical hermeneutics in its purest form. Now, the philosophy of NIP. Nothing seems to be capable of causing greater division, angst and disruption amongst chiropractors and chiropractic educators than the claim of chiropractic to a philosophy which is exclusive and unique to itself. To address this question and to outline the philosophy that underpins the neuroimpulse protocol, it is needful to respond to the very legitimate question, what exactly is philosophy? At first there was Socrates, considered by some to be the father of philosophical thought. A Greek, born of desperately poor parents, he ended up doing some time in the military. He was always a strange character, possessed of an ability to focus on one thing to the exclusion of all else, so intense that one of his military comrades once described how he began to wrestle with a problem one day and went and stood gazing at the sunrise and was still there unmoved fully 24 hours later. Rather than being a broad philosophical thinker as his student Plato became, he was obsessed by the notion of what constituted righteous living. So confronting and combative was Socrates in his discourses, he was ultimately tried by the Athenian courts in 399 BC, found guilty and executed. Among other nefarious charges was the flimsy, implausible charge of corrupting the youth. Plato, who was one of his youthful students, was actually present at his death. Plato went on to become the legitimate inventor of the discipline of philosophy as we understand it today. Plato was the first to write on the full range of philosophical questions that define the discipline down to the present day, while most philosophers write treatises on given subjects. Analysing the issue and offering argument in refutation on alternative positions to their own, Plato wrote almost exclusively in dialogue. The dialogue form of communication is not just an artful way to convey an idea or a proposition, but more an entry and an invitation to thought. From the writings of Plato have come the 5 major disciplines of philosophy, which, speaking in broad terms, are metaphysics, logic, epistemology, ethics, aesthetics. Metaphysics is the study of nature, the universe, vitalism, and the existence of God. Logic deals with right and wrong ways to think and build arguments. Epistemology is the discipline of considering how we know what we think is what we know. Ethics is how we tell what is right from what is wrong. And aesthetics, a growing and broadening area of inquiry, essentially dealing with the nature of art and beauty. Within the chiropractic profession, the discussions surrounding a profession-defining philosophy has been a fraught mixture of genuine academic pursuit, dogmatism, and outright denial, the latter two being a bar to Platonistic dialogue on the subject. Dogma may be defined as the arrogant assertion of opinion as truth, making a dogmatist a person who asserts their opinions in an unduly positive and arrogant manner. Dr. Herbert Marshall Himes, one-time director of the B.J. Palmer Clinic in Davenport, Iowa, said that the purpose of philosophy in chiropractic is to give an explanation to that which is as yet inexplicable by the current state of scientific knowledge, and is therefore an area of inquiry that is completely synchronous with scientific principles, while at the same time remaining in a state of intellectual metamorphosis. This same principle was expounded by Giraldi, who said, "I see science and philosophy as being symbiotic, the right and left hand attempting to applaud reality." Another way of thinking about it is to say that chiropractic philosophy offers a trajectory of thought beyond the boundaries of science that is in harmony with the parameters of the body of evidential knowledge. There are those, and an increasing number at that, within the chiropractic profession, who either deny the need for a profession-defining philosophy or at least question its validity. In addressing this issue in a broader context than the chiropractic profession, Rand states the following: "As a human being, you have no choice about the fact that you need a philosophy. Your only choice is whether you define your philosophy by a conscious, rational, disciplined process of thought and scrupulously logical deliberation, or let your subconscious accumulate a junk heap of unwarranted conclusions, false generalisations, undefined contradictions, undigested slogans, unidentified wishes, doubts and fears thrown together by chance, but integrated by your subconscious into a kind of mongrel philosophy and fused into a solid weight, self-doubt like a ball and chain in the place where your mind's wings should have grown." Philosophy, our friends, it has a very vital role to play, but one has to be intellectually honest and pursue philosophy in all of its beauty as outlined by Plato.